Right, so the first thing I've got to do is I've got to create this thing. So in the mono game, one of the graphics that I preloaded was something called sprites, which is just a basic massive sprite sheet that's got nothing on it. So if I open that in GIMP, which I have already done just to speed it up a little bit, you'll see it looks like this. So there's a lot of transparent area. So I'm going to do some title text for my game, and I'm going to call it Dave Shoot. Dave Shooter. You can fancy up the text as much as you want. I could probably change the colour of that, and I'll have that colour. Let's do it again. Dave Shoot 'em. Right. So just like when I'm defining any sprite, I need to know what rectangle it's in. Now, I'm going to drag my rectangle over it. If you want to, you can do some nice effects on text and like put like bezels and things like that and drop shadows. So you can always do that. But I'm just going to grab that position. So I'm going to create a sprite with those frame information. So I've just gone around like you've done when you create all your sprites. So let's go back to the game in the title screen, and I'm going to create a sprite. So I'm going to trick the game engine and Visual Studio into working together and do all the hard work for me. So I'm going to say title sprite. That's what I'm going to call it. So it doesn't exist. So I'm going to do control and full stop and get it to generate the class for me. So it's done that. I'm just going to make sure that it's got the libraries I want. So I'm just going to include all of them and stuff them at the top. So I've just taken them from title setup. Right, so to set up my sprite, I have to go public title sprite, use the picker so you don't spell things wrong. I need to make sure, because I'm making this sprite myself, I need to tell the engine that it exists. So I say gm.engineManager add sprite, this sprite. Then I'm going to define the frame. So you've been doing that, but this is how I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to say define, but I'm going to define sliding frames because I want it to slide into view. So I'm going to pick that option this time. I need to tell it what texture. So I'm using that general one. So it's TX Sprite. Right. Then I need to know what the full picture is, which is the rectangle I've just identified in GIMP. So let's just fill the rectangle info in. And that was 191426. And the width was 456 by 60 high. Okay. Right, I've got to carry on. There's more data. I need to say how I want it to slide in. And there are different methods for doing this. So if I now press space, it'll come up with slide method. So I'll press enter, then I press dot, and I get all these options. So I want it to appear from the bottom and come up. So I want it to slide up, appear. Okay, and then I want to know how many frames. Well, this is 60 pixels high, so I'm going to make it do 60 frames. Okay, so that creates the graphic for me. So that's I'll just zoom that out a little bit so you can see the whole thing. So frame.define sliding frames. I need to position it. So I'm going to change the alignment of this sprite. So I'm setting the X and Y position to be the middle bottom. So I'm going to say align equals align.bottom. So that is centered, but at the bottom of the sprite. So when I set the X position, I'm going to sit it in the center of the screen. So I can say gmd.screen size X, center X. That gives me the center of the screen. The Y position, it's 60 high. I want it down from the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to make it about 80 from the top, which will leave me a gap of about 20 pixels. Okay, and then I just need to tell the animator to animate for me. So I'm going to say frame.animator, and it's going to be an animation rate. So animate rate, 60 frames. I don't want it to take too long, so I'm going to say 0.02. So a 50th of a second for each frame. So it's going to take a little bit over a second to appear in total. When it gets to the end, I want it to stop. So I'm going to say the last frame action is stop. Okay, so that's created the sprite. What I must make sure I do in GIMP, I must save my graphic. Now, this GIMP's stupid and it'll try and save in its own format, so I need to make sure I export it. Oh, it said actually it's got an option there, overwrite sprites.png. So I'm going to say that. That was quicker. Save me go through all those menus. I must make sure I rebuild the graphic, because if you don't do that, you're going to end up with the old graphic. Right, so it's built it. Right, going back. So there's my sprite info. So edit to the engine, set the frames up. You could do it yourself manually, but you won't want to do 60 frame define lines to do that. Set the start position, set the alignment, set the animation. So back to title setup. I can actually get rid of the sprite s equals bit because I know it's a sprite now. So let's run it and see what it does. Hopefully it'll work. Once it's finished building on these super quick computers. And there you go, Dave shoot 'em. Right, the other thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to get rid of all that debug information because it's in the way. All right, so if you go to the setup, there is this line that says GM Engine Manager Debug Display. If you change it so it says debug none, and just do it like that, leave the debug all on the end, that will get rid of all the debug info. If you want it rid of the game is set up in the same way. So you can see I've got loads of things on there, so I'm just going to say debug.none ://. So I'm commenting the rest of the line out. So when I run it now, I'll only see my game graphics, which is good. And there you go, a brilliant title graphic. Dave shoot 'em. That's what mine's called. And when I go into the game now, I actually go that, and remember F12 flicks it to full screen. That's OBS didn't like that, so that's that. I've gone funny on the recording now, but and F12's come back as well. I'll come back to that. There you go. So the animation happens automatically for you. Okay.